another companion topic, in some ways equally as difficult to deal with, and some ways much like the Kaw pipeline, that we've not dealt with it perhaps as directly as we should have over the years, and that is the infrastructure system, particularly in the core area. And by infrastructure system, let me restrict that to water line and distribution lines and sewer lines. We have, and we're going to need to start a lot talking to the citizens and the public about our problems in those areas. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, it is true. And then, you know, inside the city itself, we have right at 300 miles of water mains. Now,
most folks probably have no idea.
This doesn't include the lines that go from the street to your house. These are just the water mains in the street.
Right.
And in the rural districts that we serve, we have another 150 miles of line. So, you know, we're approaching a total of 500 miles of water line. And if you can imagine a line a foot in diameter, when you drive, next time you drive to New Mexico, you know, if you could envision a line that entire length.
Well, being as I go to Houston quite often, that's
from
here to Houston.
Yeah,
yes.
that's a lot of water pipe in the ground. And much of it is, about half of it, we believe, half to 60% is what's called transite. It's an old asbestos fiber type of line that went out of use at least 40 years ago. And our city's been here a long time. Nothing wrong with the pipe. It's safe to run water through and drink, but it's extremely fragile and brittle. And the least little movement of it, we have a lot of freezing and thawing, it'll crack those lines. Droughts crack those lines.
And we never have any of that in Oklahoma.
And no, we don't have any droughts or freezing or thawing.
None.
But we're having more and more problems. That line becomes more and more brittle with age. And so I think if we were to get on you know, the Beck report said if you started replacing all of these lines and keep them up to date and replaced and repaired, and that's assuming each piece of pipe you put in the ground you leave there 50 years, that would cost us probably about $8 or $9 million a year to keep ahead of the game, just keeping our system replaced and repaired.
And as I recall on that project timeline, that projection, it was about 15 years to get everything repaired. I remember
it's about 15 years to get us back on schedule and up to date and get repaired.
And we're not unique. I mean, every city in Oklahoma is about our age. We're all about 100 years old. The infrastructure is beginning to show signs of being 100 years old. And I think our issue is that, you know, it would have been nice if we'd started this 5 years ago. Would have been even nicer 10 years ago. Good reasons, bad reasons, we didn't. As I believe at this point in time, the issue is let's make sure we don't wait another 5 years to start it, because that's just that much more decay and that much more expense.
The longer we delay, the more costly it will be to catch up and get our system.
Which again is a little bit of what's occurred in the past, and a lot of reasons that's been that case. Probably the most significant of which is how do you figure out how to pay for all that?
That's right.
And, you know, and everybody in Oklahoma and this part of the world faces that.
Well, and that's what we're trying to do with the Beck study, is to put together something that's a reasonable plan. We know we can't spend all that money right now. We don't have all that money. We can't expect the public to come up with that much money as quickly. But if we can begin to adjust our water rates over a period of time, gradually, and use those increases to put into a program to repair and replace these lines, we think that's doable. And we think we can keep our water rates, again, they're going to be higher than we pay today, but I think they will continue to be some of the lowest in the state, because we're all facing these same problems, some of the lowest in the country. We're hearing this from cities throughout the United States. It's not just Stillwater. You know, everybody started developing municipal water systems 150 years ago. So everybody had forgotten. It's all underground. We can't see it out of sight, out of mind.
You don't drive down the street and see it.
And
we go home tonight and we turn on the faucet and water comes out. We're happy. That's what we expect. And we don't think about anything in between.
Right. And all of a sudden we're having more and more water breaks, and streets are breaking up, and we close down traffic and spend 3 days repairing a line. Not unique. It's happening everywhere. And so it's caused all of us around the country to really look at our system and say we have forgotten it too long. We have to remember it's there and keep it repaired.
Exactly. And the Beck report was great in that regard, in terms of analyzing the problems, providing a plan to correct the problems, not only a fiscal plan, but a plan logistically.
Yes. Yes.
And really gave, I think, for me at least, and the rest of the council, some much needed information in terms of being able to see light at the end of the tunnel and solving this problem. And where could people get the Beck report if they were interested in reading what we've seen, Dan?
Okay. Well, it's a multi-page report. I think we can make it available. We can make it available online.
Okay.
It's much easier to do that. We can make it on the city's website at stillwater.org. We do have copies. We'll put a copy in the library, or
Okay.
a couple of copies in the Stillwater Library, and we can have a copy at City Hall. It is a lengthy document. I don't think it's possible for us to print multiple copies for
Right,
distribution,
right.
but we certainly can make it available on the website, and it's here at City Hall. People can come in and look at it, or at the library.
And we should probably make a disclaimer to those folks that might read it, and that is, don't get shocked when you see the numbers.
Right.
Once again, those numbers are fairly significant.
They are. They are.
The projection in the Beck report, ironically, is that the cost to do all of the infrastructure, and again in today's dollars, would be much equal or very similar to the cost to build a new pipeline to the CAW, $80 or $85 million. Yeah.
And it won't happen, but it's not going to all happen overnight. Again,
Right.
it's going to be staged and gradual, because we all have to live here. We all have to live with the water rates, but we also need the water to live here.
Yes, we do. And we'll all have to live with some inconveniences from time to time when we do get this underway. If nothing else, there are going to be some streets that are going to be disturbed and things of that sort. And we probably don't want to do all that at one time either.
Right.
So,
I think probably in the next few months we'll be able to come back and talk about, more immediately, what are we going to do in the first phase? What's planned in the first year?
right.
And we have submitted about $40 million worth of proposed projects through the process to Washington. We hear of an economic stimulus
Right.
package that could provide some grant money for some of these. Now, we know we're not going to get all that grant money, but at least we know of $40 million worth of projects that need to be done in the next few years, and so we've at least submitted those. If we're fortunate enough to get some of that stimulus money, maybe that will help reduce the burden locally a little bit.
Certainly anything
But,
we get would
anything we
obviously
get,
be welcome.
If we get $10.
That's
we'd be
exactly
welcome.
right. That's $10 more
But
than we
we'll
got
be more
last year.
specific with that. And then
Yeah.
the other side of this issue is, after we use, all the water that we use, we don't consume. I mean, we do consume, but we have to take it away after we're finished using it. That's the sewer side.
Right.
And I think that's a whole other day we can come back and talk about.
And that is a whole
infrastructure.
nother day. We've got almost as many issues on the sewer side with the sewer distribution lines, and rather than outgoing leakage like we have in the water distribution, we have incoming leakage, and that's every bit as damaging, every bit as problematic as the outgoing leakage on the water lines. So why don't we reserve that topic for another
We do.
day, and maybe in the next couple of weeks we'll do that, and we'll talk about what's going on with the sewer distribution lines and the sewer treatment plant and some of the issues we have there. Again, not trying to talk doom and gloom and talk about a lot of things that are not necessarily pleasant to talk about, but trying to be realistic and educate people on some issues we have in the city of Stillwater that we're going to have to deal with.
And we don't, I don't intend to be totally pessimistic about this.
Right.
And we talk about the wrong, we forget to remind ourselves of that. We're very fortunate to have a state-of-the-art water treatment plant. Now, it's been there for a few
Yes.
years, but in today's world, it's still relatively new. We can continue to maintain that. Fortunate to have a plant with more than enough capacity to service for quite some time. We also have a state-of-the-art wastewater treatment plant. We used to call the sewer plant.
Mm-hmm.
And again, with maintenance, it can last us a long time. So we're fortunate to have some very major parts in place. So it's just some of the connecting parts need to be.
We're going to get them
taken care of.
fixed.
And
We're
we'll
going to
do
get them
it.
fixed.
We will.
Well, thanks for coming on and spending your time today. Been very informative, very educational, I hope, for the citizens that have
I hope
watched
so.
this, and we'll continue to talk about these
We will.
issues. So we'll be back with another presentation from Mr. Galloway in the next week or two, right here from City Hall. Thanks for joining in, folks.